No, this isn't the holiday programme. Despite the gorgeous surroundings we find ourselves in, this is still two wheels. But this week, we've come to deepest Tuscany for the launch of Aprilia's new Mille and Mille R. The original Mille has always been a very good motorcycle, and it's quite amazing how right Aprilia got it from the word go, given that it was their first foray into building anything bigger than a 650cc cylinder trail bike. Over the years, they have also added to the base Mille with a Mille R, which has uprated wheels, suspension and brakes. And this has always been an excellent motorcycle. But at the last launch of the last incarnation, it was quite obvious it was time for something a little more. So here we are on the biggest freebie junket in motorcycling, the International Press Launch. And Aprilia's job here is to make sure that we all have a very nice time and are able to enjoy their motorcycle in as pleasant and as stress-free an environment as possible. Now, there are a few key ingredients to any good launch, and these are, first of all, the wallet. This is the manufacturer's UK representative whose job it is to look after all the UK journalists, make sure they get everywhere on time, and most importantly, to get the drinks in at the end of the night. Next up, you're going to need a bunch of journalists. Now, in the UK, it's a very small business, so most people know each other or have worked together at some point, which means any one of these beanos is always like a bit of a school reunion, and there's a good laugh guaranteed. And after that, you're going to need a good location. We want a nice hotel somewhere where we can really relax. Look at this place, probably the best hotel I think any of us have ever stayed in. And the final key ingredient to any launch before you get to ride the motorcycle is the presentation. This is the manufacturer's chance to tell us everything they want to stress about their new motorcycle. It will normally be the first time the thing's unveiled and you get to see it in the flesh. There'll be some kind of a video presentation, and also the manufacturer's technical people who've been involved in developing and building the bike will also be there to tell you why it's so wonderful. After the presentation, it's time for a few drinks, a nice meal, time to relax, but not relax too much. After all, we've all got a ride tomorrow. And so here we have it at last. They've pulled the covers off the Mille R and the Mille factory, as the two standard and R models are now called, and we've seen them in the flesh for the first time. What do I think? Well, I think on first chance they've done a very good job. I'm not entirely convinced by some of the colour schemes. Some parts of the bike look a little fussy, but I am being picky. It's smaller, it's more compact, it's sleeker. They've managed to make it look a lot more modern without spoiling those distinctive Aprilia lines. And certain parts, like the top yoke and that tail unit in particular, are almost worthy of going into an art gallery. Anyway, while everyone else here is checking out the bike, let's have a look at a chat we had earlier with the Mille's project leader, Mariano Ferraviziano.
È stata sicuramente una grande sfida questa.
It was a great challenge for us.
Perché sapevamo e conoscevamo molto bene il vecchio modello.
Because we knew that the old model was very good already.
E per questo è stato fatto un grossissimo lavoro di ricerca e sviluppo.
That's why we had done a very big work on developing and research already on the old model.
Per riuscire a migliorare.
Trying to improve the new one.
Allora noi avevamo, questa è la stessa di prima,
sì.
Noi avevamo tre punti importanti.
We had three main goals.
Che erano fare una moto più piccola,
to do a smaller motorbike,
più bella,
much nicer,
e più performanti,
and with better performance.
Well, it's the end of a very long day here in deepest Tuscany when we have finally met the new Mille for the first time, and in very, very beautiful surroundings. There does seem to be a lot to be impressed with this motorcycle, quite genuinely. But will all of this have been enough to convince us cynical journalists that the bike really is going to be that good?
I've always been a big fan of the Mille and Mille R, to be fair. It's always sort of been a bit of a Mona Lisa, a little bit enigmatic, not as beautiful, say, as a Ducati, but I think what they've done with this Mona Lisa really sort of trimmed the fat off the edges, given her sort of slightly slimmer hips and given a bit of a smile. So they've really sort of, I think, taken the basic bike and really given it a bit of a makeover.
I think that Aprilia have done what Ducati did with the 999. There's been a great big build-up to it, a massive build-up of hype to it, which for sure with the Ducati it was a massive model for them after the 998. And I think with the Aprilia it's the same sort of scenario really. They've had the Mille on the go now for 5 or 6 years. It needed an update. It was looking lardy, it was looking big, and it needed a change, which they've done now.
This has got a bit of a wow factor, and I'm looking forward to riding it tomorrow. Mugello is a great track, and it'll really highlight what this bike's capable of. They're really underlining the fact that it's a track bike. Okay, it's a road bike in basis, but it's got a lot of track potential, and certainly the current bike has a lot of that. And due to the updates on the bike, I think it's going to be even better to ride.
So there you have it. Despite all the glitz and ceremony going on here, there is only one place that this bike is going to be able to prove to everyone that it's as good as Aprilia say it is, and that's going to be at the Mugello circuit tomorrow. So join us there later when we'll be riding the bike.
Ever thought of sprucing up your pride and joy with a thundering race can or a bikini fairing? Well, here at Demon Tweeks in Wrexham, they specialise in aftermarket extras and have a mammoth range of Bolton accessories to drool over. From airboxes to yoke covers and colour-coordinated wing mirrors. If you want it, you can have it. But do you want it? Or more importantly, do you need it? So it's important when parting with your hard-earned wonga that your tasty add-ons boost your street cred. After all, you don't want your fellow bikers falling about laughing and sniggering at your mods as you ride into the car park for a local bike meet. So Adi, you're a resident bike expert here. What kind of add-ons can we get to improve the looks of our bikes?
Well, we can replace the hugger. We can replace it with a carbon fibre or a colour match one to keep in theme with the bike. They make the bike look a lot neater if they're colour coded. Above that you've got an under tray, which would cut a lot of the original back section off the bike and try and make it look a lot sleeker. You can also change the rear light cluster as well, included in it. The front of the bike can fit a double bubble screen,
Right.
which again colour coded, clear, iridium. And then to the back of the bike, where your passenger seat would be, we can replace that if your passenger's not coming with you, with a seat pod that just clips on just like the original one does.
Right.
And can be colour coded again, keeping theme with the bike.
Fantastic. Thanks, Adi. So basically, the best way to see if these extras actually do improve the look of a bike is to take a virtually bog standard one and compare it to a machine that's been fully modded to the max. My mate James has lent us his almost standard ZX6, and we're going to compare this bike to this oh-so-trick R1. Now we're in a workshop, it's a bit noisy, but a good place. So talk us through it, Adi.
Right, on the R1 what we've done is we've fitted a double bubble screen, an iridium one,
Yep.
which you can see James has just got the clear one on there. On the brakes, James has already changed the discs and the brake lines due to the amount of mileage he's done. On the R1 we've put a full brake kit on it, complemented it with a master cylinder as well, just to give it the ultimate stopping power.
Yep.
Coming back on the bike, steering damper, assist the handling, rear sets, a bit more comfier riding position.
Yep.
Back to the hugger on the bike. James has got a black plastic one fitted.
Yep.
This one's got a carbon fibre one. Again, they'll both do the same job. One's a little bit lighter than the other.
Yeah.
On James's bike, he's got a seat pod where a passenger would sit. On this one, we took that off, replaced it with a slimline pod, which doesn't take a passenger, obviously.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't want to on a bike like this.
No, absolutely not.
Underneath the bike, we've got an under tray fitted on there. And like on James's, you can see the comparison where the black overhangs, which is standard. We've cut all that off, neatened it off, put a nice little under tray on there, some nice little indicators, slims the bike off.
Right.
Going on to the exhaust system on the bike.
Yep.
James has just got an aftermarket cam fitted on there, which is going to give the bike a few more brake horsepower, let it go a little bit more. On this, we've put a full titanium system on there,
Right.
with a titanium coloured can to go with it.
Right.
So it'll give it a lot more power throughout
power.
the rev range.
Now James's tyres, wheels, are a little bit pitted. How much are these wheels on this one?
These are £1,000 to replace these.
Stop there, I don't want to know anymore. AD, remind of information. That's it for part one, but join us in part two when I shall be looking at some of the best performance products money can buy.
The magnificent Mugello circuit lies deep in the stunning region of Tuscany in Italy. Home to both MotoGP and Formula One, Mugello is an incredibly fast and flowing circuit. But it also has some very technical bits that will catch you out. It's not a circuit to take lightly. But now for the UK's press, it offers the chance to test Aprilia's eagerly awaited new Mille. And here we are in the pit lane at Mugello for what is definitely the best part of this job. The very idea that we are in fact being paid to be here is almost ridiculous. I've got my own garage, my own technician and my own bike. As you can hear, the first session is out at the moment, so I'm going to go and get my kit on and get out there. Well, I'll tell you what, it is seriously hot out there. Now, that's the first half an hour I've had on that bike. I'm not going to make any slash judgments right now, but what can I tell you? First impressions, they are. The bike is feeling a little more powerful than it used to be, and the fueling is feeling smoother. But the biggest impression is a real feeling of tautness from the chassis, from the suspension. The brakes are really hard. The whole thing is so tightly put together that for just learning a new track, that's as complicated as it is here at Mugello, it's made my life very easy. Let's see what everyone else thought after that first session.
I liked the bike straight away, as expected really. I mean, the older model is one of my favourite track bikes, but I think this one is better, and I certainly felt very comfortable in the second session. And I think that's the bike's best virtue, you know. It gives you a lot of feel and feedback, it inspires tons of confidence, it makes you into a better rider really, you know. It gives you the courage to sort of push and push and push until you get to the limit.
Feels great. I mean, it feels as though it's a bit pokier than the old one. You know, it's got another 1,000 revs to play with. But again, for the first session, I'm generally punting along in a slightly sort of a lower gear, just because I don't want to do anything silly. I just want to get a feel for the track. But the brakes are awesome. I mean, if you're not careful, if you use 2 fingers, you get flung into the hoardings, which is always interesting.
Well, after all the build-up and hype of last night, I have to say I am very impressed with the bike. Turning in is a lot quicker than the old bike. It feels a lot more stable mid-corner than the old bike. And getting out the other side of the corner is a lot easier as well. Power delivery now is so much smoother than it was before. It hasn't got that great big punch that it used to have between 4 and 6, where the power used to come in with a bang, which if you were a bit unwary, a bit hapless with the throttle, it would have you out the seat. And the whole thing as a package just feels easier to ride.
Well, that's the first impressions out of the way. Guess we better go and ride some more, see what else we can learn. So, there we have it. It's been the end of a truly excellent day here at Mugello. And what can I tell you about the Mille? Well, it is definitely better than the old Mille R that it replaces. It's now called the Mille Factory, just to confuse things a little, where the standard model becomes the R. But the handling on this bike is sublime. They've taken it to another level. It feels more compact, it feels tauter, tighter, more responsive. You really feel like you could get away with an awful lot on this. All in all, very impressive job, and I don't think Aprilia have messed with the character of the original Mille, which always made it so good.
We've already looked at why us fashion-conscious bikers fit products like race cans and double bubble screens to our beloved toys. So, Adi, let's concentrate on 3 main areas then of turning our bikes into monsters. What have we got in front of us?
Right, we've just got a few things in front of us here. First thing, what people normally change is the exhaust can.
Yeah.
This basically carbon fibre end can. It's a race can. It's just going to make the bike a lot quicker. It's going to make it a bit louder as well.
Right.
It's going to make it hopefully a lot lighter.
Right.
It's a carbon titanium construction. They come in all different finishes, shapes and sizes. This is probably one of the best on the market.
So quite strong and quite light then?
Yeah. Some cans can be compensated with a full system. This is just part of a titanium system, which is very light. It's hopefully a lot lighter than standard. Now on an end can, as a rule, you'd probably get say 4 or 5 brake on a good setup. For a full system you can get up to 22 brake. It's set up and dialed in correctly, dynajetted, etc.
Yeah, so is that light? That's titanium. Wow, that is light.
That's the difference between the steel one is you would be struggling to carry it as a complete unit. That you could lift in your hand. Once you've got the bike going a lot quicker, you've got to get it handled as well.
Yep.
This is a basic shock from Olin's. It's a full singing and dancing shop. It's got all the different settings you can ever wish to use. It's got ride height, which is this one, your length adjustment. There's everything you need on there. This is virtually the same shock as what you'd find on a race bike. You would probably turn this a couple of times to dial it in. A professional racer would spend probably an hour just on each dial to get it finely tuned in for himself. But for me and you, average road use, it's pretty simple to set up.
Fantastic.
And bolt on.
Right.
This little one is a steering damper. This would normally go on the top of the bike or at the side of the bike, depending on the bike it's going onto.
Yeah.
Again, different setups for different people. Racers would have it turned right in. You and me on the road have it backed off quite a bit. This will stop any head shaking coming out of fast corners, any speed wobbles. It just prevents you getting into problems before you got the power down altogether.
Much needed piece of kit, especially if you've got all that power.
A lot of bikes are coming with them now as standard, but the standard one isn't really adjustable.
Yeah.
Then we'll move on to some brakes. You've got it going quick, you've got it handling right, you've got to stop.
Yep.
This is the top of the range stuff. This is a complete caliper and disc kit.
Right.
You're running into about £1,000 on something like this. If you're not going to go for that straight away, you can just put a set of brake lines on.
Right.
They'll improve over standard, which will help the bike stop. Obviously not to this extent.
No.
But everyone's on a budget. You've got to start somewhere.
Absolutely fantastic. You're going to look pretty flash with all this lot on, aren't you,
will.
actually?
A bit quicker.
If you can afford it. Thanks, Sadie. Well, I hope we've clarified all the bolt-on market for you at home, and I think Santa might be a bit busy come Christmas.
Well, I've finished riding here at Mugello, and all I've got to look forward to is a very unstressful night of fine food and fine wine. But although I've finished working, not everyone has, as I found out earlier. We're here now with Aprilia's head of PR for the UK, Paul Walker, to find out a bit more about what goes on behind the scenes at a launch like this. So how's it been putting this launch together, Paul?
Oh, Warren, it's a huge amount of work. You can imagine there are so many bikes, people, trucks, logistics, hotels, the circuit hire, all the safety arrangements, all the travelling arrangements. It's huge.
It must be like shipping an army down here. You've basically got a whole Aprilia town going on at Mugello this week.
Yeah, when you think our headquarters is 200 miles north of here in the Venice area, virtually the whole factory has to be moved down here, or certainly the part of it, you know.
And after putting on an operation so big, you've now got journalists from all over the world coming to evaluate your brand new baby. How do the people at Aprilia feel? Is there any nervousness before an event like this?
Nervous excitement, I think, would be probably the best way of putting it. Obviously, we know we've got a really good motorcycle, and we're just very, very keen to know what you guys think of it.
And how's it going for you so far?
Very good, very good. The feedback is very, very positive. We're more than happy, and it seems most of the journalists are too.
And talking of journalists, that brings us to the UK bunch. You've been dealing with us for a long time now.
Yeah.
How do you find it?
Good fun. Professional people, know what they want. Usually I try to supply everything, but all in all, they're a good bunch of guys.
And we'll see what you say off camera later. So there you have it. There's a stack of work going on behind the scenes here that you never ever get to see, or even would think about. And it's not just the chaps at Aprilia who are working flat out on this launch either. There are a host of other people at work. And if you wanted to get as close to the track as we are now without riding, the only way you could do it would be to be one of the launch photographers. And that is not an easy task.
A normal day usually starts before the real press launch, when your customer call you and explain you the requirement to the press launch. Usually we come in the location the day before, just to have a check and to choose the point to take picture because the light change in the different hours of the days. No? In this case, you have to choose the correct way to take picture to satisfy all the requirements to the customer and to the journalists that came here to test the bike. We have 36 journalists a day, a big number. But we are 4 photographers, so it's okay. We talk about 1,200 pictures a day in digital. Okay, the Mugello circuit is a very nice circuit to drive. A little bit less to take picture. If you compare, I don't know, Misano circuit and Mugello circuit, Misano is very close. The point of view for the photographer, the point to take picture of the photographer are closer than in Mugello, because the concept of building is different. So the results maybe are different. I mean, you have a nice picture here and nice picture in Mugello, in Misano, obviously, but it's different the way to take picture.
So that's the lot of a photographer. But what's it like being a bike journalist? Well, as the only job I've ever had, I can say the perks are enormous. You can have a lot of fun doing this, and if you're into motorcycles, it's like being a kid in a sweetie shop when you can eat anything you like. But there is a downside as well. The pay is rubbish, career prospects are limited to say the least, and deadlines are a living hell that will ruin your social life regularly. However, like I said, if you're into bikes, it doesn't get any better. But that brings us to the end of this episode of Two Wheels, so we'll see you again next week. In the meantime, it's farewell from Mugello.